everyone, I hope you are doing well. So today I wanted to create a little message for twin flames on what is that crucial turning point for your twin flame journey. Now, a lot of people believe that, your twin flame journey obviously really begins when you meet your twin flame, right? When you meet that other person, your divine counterpart. Of course, this journey is called the twin flame journey, so most likely it's about the twin. But when you go further along on this journey, you come to realize that this journey was not about the twin flame ever. They are just that reminder, that external, reference point that helps you really to go in the right direction. And it serves as that reminder. But this journey is actually about you. So that crucial turning point, or you can almost say that point where your twin flame journey really begins and actually has some sort of a positive impact where you start to move in the right direction, is when you start turning inward. When you learn that nothing on the outside is going to help you. Even if you're looking to come into union with somebody outside of you, that journey needs to begin and needs to be traveled through the inside out. So what I wanted to really talk about is, what does it mean to come home to yourself? Because that's what you're doing on this journey. And coming home to yourself really is that shift from, chasing love on the outside of you, realizing that you are your true source of love, the power, the wholeness that you're actually seeking outside of you in somebody else, but really that wholeness, that love, that power, that source, that complete source of everything you need is actually within you. So we can almost say that, coming home to yourself actually means when you finally have your energy returning back to you, your focus returns back toward your actual soul, right? Learning that the outside you, which no longer that identity that you've created for yourself, that's not you. You're not your last name. You're not your identity that your parents gave you. You're not your nationality. You're not your religion. So if you were, and this is interesting because just today I heard a really cool, it was almost like an introduction, and this was a random post that I saw on Instagram, and there was a female, and the question she was asking the other person that she was sitting across from was, if you had to introduce yourself to somebody, and I told you that, the prerequisite for this is you cannot use your name, you cannot use your nationality, you cannot use your identity, what you've been raised to be. You can't say, this is my background, this is what I'm passionate about. How would you introduce yourself? And the other individual was absolutely stunned because they were like, I don't know. Outside this identity, I don't know how to describe who I am. I don't know what sort of an introduction to give to you. And so really this journey, because we're going from being associated with the form to the formless, right? Because that's what your soul is. It's part of the divine who is formless without an identity, but yet everything. The divine is infinite, yet we can't really narrow God down to, a culture or religion or anything of that sort. And we are part of the divine, so we are also formless at the soul level. So if you were to really understand yourself and what you're trying to do on this journey, coming home to yourself is recognizing who that is, right? Not your physical self, not who you are on the outside, but who you are as, the embodiment of your soul, the essence of your soul. So then truly we can say that, this journey, once we realize it's not about a twin on the outside, we also realize it's not about our identity, it's about us at the soul level. And to return home to yourself is only possible when you start doing a couple of things I'm going to mention here. So to come home to yourself, first thing you really need to start focusing on and working through is stop leaking your energy. Now, what do I mean by stop leaking your energy? Well, this is really the first stage of you coming home. And during this stage, what you're really trying to do is take a look at where you're spending your energy. Now, if we're talking about raising our vibration, reaching higher states of consciousness, which you're meant to do on this journey, then you need to become really laser focused on where are you spending your energy. Are you overthinking about your twin? That has to stop. Are you scrolling through social media? That has to go. Are you spending a lot of time fantasizing about various things? Now, if this is related to your purpose, that's not a bad thing because you're starting to take that energy and you're trying to refocus it towards your own self. But if you're leaking that energy towards other people, not knowing how to love your own self, that's something that needs to be rectified on this journey, because you cannot come home to yourself if your energy is really leaking in all these different directions. Now, another aspect of, your leaky energy is really past conversations. Are you too focused towards the future? Are you too focused towards the past? People that might have hurt you. All of these things you're going to have to, look at. There's also that overthinking syndrome that a lot of people have on this journey as well, trying to figure everything out. If that's something that you were doing in your personal life and now you're trying to apply that lens to your twin flame journey, trying to get all the answers, well, that's another thing that you got to focus on. Where is your energy going? You have to get out of your mind on this journey, right? Because you cannot reach those higher states of consciousness if, you're meant to really go towards stillness and you're just spending all your time thinking, then that's another way you're leaking your energy in the wrong direction. So becoming very cognizant and very aware of what you're doing with your time, where your energy is flowing, so that you can really move that back, because your life force is flowing outward instead of inward. So we need to redirect all that energy back onto yourself, right? You can almost say energy is following your attention. Wherever your mind is going, your life force will go as well. So we need to stop that leaky faucet and bring all of that energy back home to ourselves. Now, when you actually start to do this, when you start to come back home to yourself, you will start to reclaim your attention. You will pull all that, emotional cords back to yourself instead of worrying about, past conversations, stories, people that hurt you. Cutting those cords so that you can feel lighter, bring that energy back to yourself. And then the best one of all and most important is choosing presence over projection. Stop having those conversations in your mind with other people. I wish I would have said this. I wish I could have done this better. You've got to let all of that go and be in the present moment. And as a result of that, you will feel less drained, less anxious, less desperate actually in many situations, because your system is no longer running on energetic depletion. So this is absolutely important and crucial for your journey. Now, the second thing that needs to really happen on this journey for you to come home to yourself is you need to understand your own energy. When you finally stop leaking that energy outward and you start sitting in stillness, start sitting with yourself, you will start to become acquainted with your own energy. Now, one of the problems that, twin flames really get stuck with is feeling your twin's energy. And depending on how long you spend with really, becoming acquainted with that energy that you're sharing with your twin flame, when you can feel your twin flame all the time, you can become obsessed with that, right? Knowing how they're feeling, knowing what they're kind of going through. And it is so important to shift out of that, because the longer you spend really being attached to that energy, you can't understand your own energy. And coming home to yourself means moving away from that. That is why I highly recommend that you go through your detox phase of really blocking your twin, not talking to your twin, so that you can move away from what's happening in their life and really start to focus on yourself. So instead of, confusing your own patterns with their patterns, because, sometimes you can have episodes of anxiety and you're crying, you don't understand why you're crying. That is not your energy. That is sometimes when you especially can't explain it to yourself what's going on. That is your twin's energy, right? There's a huge energetic overwhelm that you can feel because it's not your own personal energy. So coming home to yourself is literally cutting that little cord. And I'm not talking about cutting the cord with your twin, because that doesn't work. That can work with soulmate connections. It does not work with twin flame connections. What I'm talking here about is really just getting to know your own energy. The more you sit with yourself, the more you stop wasting that time and energy on the outside, you will start to become acquainted with what your own energy feels like. You'll understand what drains you versus what nourishes you, when something is yours versus when it's not yours, because that is crucial for this journey. When you are, early on and new on this journey, you ask questions like, I wonder what my twin is feeling. I wonder what they're going through right now. What's happening in their life? You are so fixated on that. But we want to switch that so that you're starting to ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? What is my body telling me right now? The focus needs to shift away, not just from your twin, but everybody. This includes your family relationships, your work relationships, your friends outside of your work and home life. Every single engagement and interaction, you need to start assessing it to understand what feels good to you, so that we can go into step number 3 of coming home to yourself, and that is stepping into sovereignty. Now, this is a massive, massive part of your journey. You are on a journey of self-mastery, self-sovereignty. And this is basically reaching that state where you are no longer emotionally being run by other people's choices, actions, decisions, emotions. So before coming home, your mood might depend on what's happening with other people. If there's people around you that are upset, you may have that same reaction. Your worth is dependent on the compliments from other people, or it depends on them giving you attention. Your peace depends on how other people are treating you. But once you come home to yourself, you are responsible and have the ability to choose your emotional state. You will do everything you can to conserve your energy, and that's how you'll know. You will be able to turn people away and say, I'm sorry, I know I made plans with you tonight, but I'm not feeling up to it, and I need to kind of do what's best for me right now. Your family members who are very demanding may call and say, we need you here, we need you to do this, and you will be able to say without feeling guilty, unfortunately, I'm not able to do this today because this is how I'm feeling, and I don't think I can, put myself in that situation. And so you will really start to understand what you need to move forward on your journey successfully. And that's when you can say, sovereignty is that moment that you will stop trying to be chosen for somebody else, and you will start to choose your own self. Now, this doesn't mean you stop loving people that are in your life. It just means that love is no longer self-abandonment. You are not self-sacrificing your own self for the needs of others, for the wants of others. It doesn't mean you're not compassionate. It doesn't mean you're not helping other people, but it means that you are taking care of yourself first before you start to honor those other relationships, those, behaviors or whatever's coming at you. You're putting yourself first. Now, just remember that on this journey, you go through some major and massive shifts. But when you really want to know, have I mastered myself? Have I, reached that place of being the best that I can be, but the best version of myself? Because that's what this journey is trying to get you to do. Again, it's not about your twin. This is about you. That shift will really be when you can finally say to yourself, based on situations that are happening in your life, instead of you saying, and coming from a place of being the victim, why is this happening to me? Why are people doing this to me? It's when something is trying to trigger you and you're able to ask yourself, what is this trying to show me? What am I not learning here? What is this asking of me at this time? That is what self-mastery will look like on this journey. Shadow work during this journey will be people triggering you, but instead of reacting, you can understand from that higher place what's taking place. You are able to feel your emotions instead of projecting them outwards. You are able to take accountability for your patterns, and you understand. Even if, you still have a little bit of work to do, that's okay. But recognizing what's needed is the key here. And a lot of this is also going to be reparenting yourself, your inner child, from all that neglect that might have taken place in your life at different points in your life. So just remember, when you look to your twin and say, man, you really screwed up my life, this journey is just so difficult thanks to this one person. Remind yourself that the twin has not come to break you. They came to reveal where you were unhealed and you needed healing. This is a healing journey, and your real opportunity here is to identify that and then to go and heal it and overcome it so you can reach that place of self-mastery and come home to yourself. Be the master of your own energy, your own pattern, and understand your soul. Yes, this is what this journey is really about. This journey really drives you crazy with all the stuff about union and, physical union and finally seeing your twin again. But really, the coming home is your final destination. This journey is not about meeting that twin and coming into union with them. It's coming into union with your own self. Coming home to yourself is the real union. It is union with your soul, your own power, your own life force energy, understanding that and understanding your own truth. And from that place, love is no longer something that you chase. It's something that you radiate and naturally attract. That is what you are doing on this journey. Hopefully this message has been helpful to you, but really what you're doing is coming home to yourself on this journey so that you can stop waiting for love to arrive and you yourself can become that place where love actually lives. That is your goal on your twin flame journey. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope this was helpful. God bless.